Hi, Captain Kara from the Novans Planetarium. Today is Friday Fun with Food. We're going to do a little bit of space learning with sandwich cookies. And today we're going to learn about the moon. A question I like to ask during my Sky Talks is the moon always round? Well, is it? Usually the answer is about 50-50 between yes and no. Well, the moon is always round. It's a big ball of rock in the sky, just like the Earth is. But does the moon always look round? And to that, the answer is no. If this is our moon right here, we can show how, even though the moon is always round when we look at it over here, when we shine light on it, depending on how the moon is traveling around the Earth, we can see more and more of the moon being lit up by the sun. And that's why we see different shapes when we look at the moon. When the whole moon is lit up from where we stand, we see what we call a full moon. That is what we're looking at right here. We see the whole face of the moon that's pointing toward us because the sun is just setting in the west while the moon is just rising in the east. Start with 4. If you're exceptionally skilled, that might be all you need, but you might want to keep some extras on hand just in case. Other than that, the only thing you're going to need is a kitchen butter knife. I happen to have a handy dandy little bamboo butter knife that I like to use, and we're going to use that to scrape the cream inside the cookies so that we can show moon phases. So really, all you have to do is take your cookies and try and very carefully twist apart the two sides so that on each side you have a little bit of cream that you can shape into a moon phase. Now this one's almost just about a full moon. That one's great. This one's kind of messy. Looks a little bit like a face. So we're going to have to do a little shaping with our butter knife on that one. So at the beginning of the month-long cycle, we don't actually see the moon at all, because as it rises, the sun is shining on part of it that we can't see. But it's still there in the sky, even though it's not lit up at all. This is what we call the new moon. A few days later, we see just a tiny little crescent of a moon up in the sky. It looks like a flying banana, or maybe a smile. This crescent moon is just a couple days old into its month-long cycle. About 7 days in, the moon looks like a letter D. This is a first quarter moon, even though it looks like the moon is half lit up. That's because it's 7 days out of about a 28-day cycle. That's 1/4. So we call it the first quarter of our moon phase cycle. And after that, the moon starts to look pretty funny. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what you think. I've asked people in the planetarium over and over. Some people say it looks like a taco. Other people have no idea. We have a pretty funny word for this one. This one's called the gibbous moon. Everybody say that at home, gibbous. One of our presenters likes to say it 3 times fast. Gibbous, gibbous, gibbous. The gibbous moon is more than a first quarter moon, but not quite a full moon. It's kind of an odd shape, a little bit like a rugby ball. And then 14 days into the moon cycle, it's just rising in the east as the sun is just setting in the west. And so we see the entire face of the moon that's toward us. And that is a big, bright circle in the sky that we call a full moon. Couple days later, another gibbous moon as the edge of the moon just starts to go away as it's out of the sun's reach. And then 3 weeks into the cycle, we have a third quarter moon because it's 3/4 of the way through the cycle. We get one more crescent moon. I was running out of icing on this one. And that is just the last little sliver of the moon that's lit up. The moon's gone completely around the Earth now, and we start the cycle all over again. This is something you can go out and watch happen in the sky every single month. We made you a little handout if you want to use it to lay your cookies on. When the moon appears to be getting bigger every day in the sky, we say it's a waxing moon. And when it appears to be getting smaller after the full moon, we say it's a waning moon. And this is what that looks like. 8 distinct phases of the moon. And now that you've seen all the different phases of the moon using these awesome cookies, my favorite part of this whole experiment is now you have to eat them. We wouldn't want to waste them, would we? So enjoy your snack, and we'll see you next time from the Robert J. Novins Planetarium.